The silver compass hit the polished oak desk with a sound that seemed to echo through eternity. Sharp, final, like a judge's gavel sealing a verdict that had been 30 years in the making. Marcus Hawthorne's hand hung frozen in midair where the compass had slipped from his trembling fingers. His face drained of color so quickly, you would have thought someone had pulled a plug and let all the life pour out of him. His lips parted, but no sound came. His eyes locked onto the tarnished pendant now resting on the quarterly reports he had been reviewing just seconds before. The entire executive floor of Hawthorne Industries seemed to hold its breath. Natalia Rivers stood on the other side of that massive desk, watching a man who commanded boardrooms and built empires from pure ambition turn into a statue right before her eyes. She had no idea that her casual comment about her grandmother's keepsake would detonate a bomb in the chest of one of the most powerful CEOs in the tech industry. All she knew was that something had gone terribly wrong, and her brand new job might be evaporating along with the color in her boss's face. Have you ever discovered a secret so big it rewrites everything you thought you knew about your own family? Have you ever wondered if the people you love kept pieces of themselves hidden away where you could never find them? This is a story about a promise made 3 decades ago, a love destroyed by cowardice, and a compass that finally brought everyone home. If you have ever believed that some things are lost forever, you need to hear what happens next. Hit that like button right now, because this story will change the way you think about second chances. Marcus Hawthorne was 54 years old. He had built Hawthorne Industries from a single idea sketched on a cocktail napkin into a billion-dollar enterprise that employed thousands of people across 6 countries. Forbes called him a visionary. Business journals analyzed his strategies. Competitors feared him. But right now, he looked like a man who had just seen a ghost walk through the wall and sit down in the chair across from him. Natalia was 26. She had been working at Hawthorne Industries for exactly 28 days. This was her first real position, after clawing her way through a state university on student loans and shifts at diners where the tips barely covered her textbooks. She needed this job more than she needed sleep. Her younger brother Gabriel had cystic fibrosis, and the medical bills were a monster that ate everything her family earned and still demanded more. This marketing assistant position with its modest salary and health benefits was not just a job, it was a lifeline for her entire family. She had been standing in Marcus Hawthorne's office presenting a social media campaign proposal when his eyes fell on the compass hanging from a leather cord around her neck. It was not valuable, not by any measure that mattered to people like him. Just tarnished silver with a cracked glass face and a needle that had not pointed true north in probably 40 years. But her grandmother had pressed it into her palm 3 years ago on her deathbed and whispered that it had belonged to someone important, someone she had loved and lost. Natalia wore it every day tucked under her blouses like a secret prayer. That compass, Marcus finally whispered. His voice sounded like sandpaper on raw wood. Where did you get that compass? The other people in the office had started to notice. Through the glass walls, Natalia could see heads turning. Vincent, the executive assistant, was already moving toward the door, his face creased with concern. The quarterly planning meeting was supposed to start in 10 minutes, and Marcus Hawthorne had never missed a quarterly planning meeting in the 15 years since he had gone public with his company. Natalia's hand went instinctively to the pendant. It belonged to my grandmother. She gave it to me before she passed away. Sir, is something wrong? Marcus Hawthorne was known for his steel composure. He had stared down hostile takeover attempts without flinching. He had fired executives who had been with him since the beginning and never shown a crack in his armor. He had given keynote speeches to audiences of thousands without a tremor in his voice. But now his breathing came in short, shallow gasps, like a man drowning in open air. Your grandmother, the words came out broken. What was her name? Isabella Rivera. Natalia said it slowly, watching confusion turn to alarm in her own mind. Mr. Hawthorne, you are scaring me. What is happening? The name hit him like a fist to the solar plexus. He actually stumbled backward, grabbing the edge of his desk with both hands. His knuckles went white. His shoulders started shaking. And then, something nobody who worked at Hawthorne Industries had ever seen before happened. Marcus Hawthorne began to cry, not quiet, dignified tears. These were sobs that came from somewhere deep and ancient and full of rot. 30 years of rot. Isabella. He breathed the name like it was sacred. Oh God, Isabella. Vincent burst through the door. Sir, I am calling your doctor right now. No. Marcus held up one shaking hand. No doctors, just. He looked at Natalia, and she saw something in his eyes that made her forget about her presentation and her nerves and even her desperate need to keep this job. She saw pure, unfiltered anguish, the kind that lives in your bones and never leaves. "Did you know my grandmother?" Natalia asked. Her own voice had dropped to barely a whisper. For a long moment, Marcus could not seem to form words. The entire office had gone silent. People were pressing against the glass walls now, watching their unshakable CEO fall apart over a piece of costume jewelry and a name. "I did not just know her," Marcus said finally. "I loved her. I have been searching for her for 30 years. The words hung in the air like smoke. Natalia felt the ground tilt sideways. Her grandmother had been a seamstress, a quiet woman who worked with her hands and spoke English with an accent she never quite lost. She had raised Natalia's mother alone after Natalia's grandfather died, when her mother was still young. She had never mentioned knowing anyone powerful, anyone rich, anyone like the man currently dissolving in front of her. "That is impossible." Natalia shook her head. "She would have told me. She probably wanted to forget me," Marcus said. His voice had gone hollow. "I do not blame her. I made a choice that destroyed everything, and I have lived with it every single day since." The office felt like it was closing in. Natalia could hear her own heartbeat pounding in her ears. She thought about the compass pressed against her chest, the way her grandmother had held it on those Sunday afternoons when she thought no one was watching, the faraway look in her eyes, like she was seeing something that existed in a place Natalia could never go. "What choice?" Natalia demanded. "What are you talking about?" Marcus moved to the window. Outside, the Atlanta skyline glittered in the afternoon sun. 40 stories below, people moved through their lives having no idea that up here in this glass tower, a man was confessing to a sin 3 decades old. 30 years ago, I was nobody. He said it quietly, staring out at the city he had conquered. I was the son of immigrants, trying to prove I belonged in this country. I met Isabella at a community center in East Atlanta. I was teaching English classes to new arrivals. She had been in America for 6 months and barely spoke the language, but she had the most incredible spirit I had ever encountered. She was fearless. Natalia found herself sinking into the chair she had been too nervous to sit in before. Her presentation folder slipped from her numb fingers and scattered across the floor. Nobody moved to pick it up. We fell in love. Fast. Marcus continued, the kind of love that feels like drowning and flying at the same time. Within 6 months, I knew I wanted to spend my life with her. I gave her that compass as a promise. It was my grandfather's. He carried it with him when he came to this country from Ireland, with nothing but hope and a change of clothes. I told Isabella that as long as she wore it, she would always find her way back to me. The compass felt heavy against Natalia's skin. She wanted to rip it off. She wanted to throw it at this man who was unraveling her entire understanding of her family history, but she could not move. My family found out about her, Marcus said. The bitterness in his voice was sharp enough to cut. They had other plans for me. There was a woman, the daughter of a business associate. My father said marrying her would secure our family's future, give us access to capital and connections we needed. He told me I could have my little romance later, after I had done my duty to the family. Natalia felt something cold spreading through her chest. She knew where this was going. I was 25 years old and terrified. Marcus turned away from the window to face her. I thought I was being smart, strategic. I told myself I could marry this other woman and build my business, and then once I was established, I could help Isabella. Maybe set her up with a job or a place to live. Maybe we could still be in each other's lives somehow. You left her, Natalia said. The words tasted like ash. I told her the engagement was off. Marcus said, I went to her apartment and I broke her heart, and I walked away because I was a coward who valued money over love. The silence that followed felt like a living thing. She disappeared the next day. Marcus continued, quit her job at the diner where she worked, left her apartment, changed her name. I tried to find her. God, I tried. I hired private investigators. I searched every database, every record I could access. But she was smart. She knew how to vanish, and I do not blame her for that either. Natalia thought about her grandmother, the woman who had worked herself to exhaustion sewing alterations at a dry cleaner, who had raised a daughter alone in a country that was not always kind to people who looked like her or talked like her, who had kept a broken compass for 30 years, like it meant something. You destroyed her life, Natalia said. The anger was starting to surface now, hot and sharp. Do you have any idea what she went through? What my mother went through? We struggled. We barely had enough to eat some months. My mother worked 2 jobs her entire adult life. And you want to tell me you tried to find her? Marcus flinched, but he did not look away. You are right. I did destroy her life. And I have spent 30 years trying to make up for it in ways that do not matter, because they do not change what I did. What does that even mean? Natalia demanded. It means I never married that other woman, Marcus said. It means I built this company and made more money than I could spend in 10 lifetimes, and it has all been meaningless. It means I have donated millions to organizations that help immigrant women, because every time I do it, I think maybe somewhere Isabella is being helped by someone the way I should have helped her. It means I wake up every morning and the first thing I think about is her face the night I left her. That is what it means. The raw honesty in his voice did nothing to soften Natalia's anger. Good, she said. I hope you think about it every day. I hope it haunts you. It does, Marcus said simply. Vincent had backed out of the office and closed the door, giving them privacy. Through the glass, Natalia could see the entire floor, pretending not to watch, while absolutely watching. This would be all over the company by end of business. The new marketing assistant who made Marcus Hawthorne cry. She is gone, Natalia said. She felt tears burning behind her own eyes now. She died 3 years ago. Lung cancer. We could not afford the treatment that might have saved her. She fought anyway, but in the end, it took her. Marcus Hawthorne made a sound like something inside him had broken. His legs seemed to give out, and he sat down hard in his chair. His face crumpled. He covered his mouth with both hands and shook with silent sobs that moved his entire body. She died never knowing you were looking for her, Natalia said. She wanted him to feel it, wanted the knife to go all the way in. She thought you just moved on and forgot about her. The sound that came from Marcus then was not quite human. It was grief given voice. 30 years of searching, ending in failure. The woman he claimed to love dying alone, believing she had been nothing to him. If this story is hitting you hard already, you need to stay with me because we are just getting started. Drop a comment right now and tell me what you would do in this situation. Would you walk away or would you stay and listen? And do not forget to subscribe, because what comes next will absolutely wreck you in the best way possible. Natalia did not remember leaving the office. One moment she was standing there watching Marcus Hawthorne fall apart, and the next she was in her car in the parking garage gripping the steering wheel so hard her hands ached. The compass hung against her chest, feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds. She did not go home. She drove to her mother's house in the same neighborhood where she had grown up. The houses were small here, working class. The kind of place where people knew their neighbors and looked out for each other because they had to. Her mother, Elena, was in the front yard, pulling weeds from the flower bed she had been tending for 20 years. Mom, Natalia called out as she got out of the car. I need to talk to you about Grandma. Elena looked up. She was 52, but looked older. Hard work and worry did that to a person. What about her baby? Did she ever tell you about a man named Marcus Hawthorne? The color drained from Elena's face in exactly the same way it had drained from Marcus's face 2 hours earlier. Where did you hear that name? So you know about him. Natalia felt her stomach drop. Elena stood slowly brushing dirt from her knees. Come inside. They sat at the kitchen table that had been there since Natalia was a child. The same table where she had done homework and eaten breakfast before school and learned that her grandmother had died. Elena made coffee neither of them would drink and stared at the cup in front of her like it held answers. Your grandmother never spoke his name, Elena said finally, but when I was very young, maybe 7 or 8, I heard her crying one night. I went to her room and she was sitting on the edge of her bed, holding something, a compass. She did not see me at first. She was talking to it, saying she wished things had been different, saying she wished he had been braver. Natalia felt tears sliding down her face. I asked her about it the next day. Elena continued. She just said she had loved someone once who could not love her back. She made me promise never to ask about it again, so I did not. But I always wondered. And then, after she died, I found a box in her closet, full of things from before she married your grandfather. Pictures of her as a young woman, happier than I had ever seen her. And in one of the pictures, she was with a man, handsome, young, looking at her like she hung the moon. "Did you keep the picture?" Natalia asked. Elena got up and left the room. She came back with a shoebox. Inside was a photograph, yellowed with age. Natalia's grandmother could not have been more than 23 in the picture. She was wearing a simple sundress and laughing. Next to her was a man who looked exactly like a young version of Marcus Hawthorne. "That is him," Natalia whispered. "He works at my company. He is my boss." Elena stared at her. "What?" Natalia told her mother everything about the compass, about Marcus's reaction, about the 30-year search and the love he claimed never died. Elena listened without interrupting, her hands wrapped around her coffee cup like she was trying to draw warmth from it. When Natalia finished, Elena was quiet for a long time. Finally, she spoke. "Your grandmother changed her name after she married your grandfather. She was Isabella Santos when she met this Marcus. She became Isabella Rivera when she married. I think she did it to disappear, to make sure he could never find her." "Why?" Natalia asked. "If she still loved him, why would she do that?" Elena looked at her daughter with sad eyes. "Because sometimes love is not enough, baby. Sometimes it just hurts." They sat together in that kitchen as the afternoon light faded. Natalia thought about her grandmother carrying a broken compass for 30 years, keeping a photograph of a man who had chosen money over her, dying without knowing he had spent 3 decades searching. "What are you going to do?" Elena asked. "I do not know," Natalia admitted. "Part of me wants to never speak to him again. He abandoned her. He does not deserve anything from us." "But," Elena prompted, "but I keep thinking about that compass, about why she kept it. She could have thrown it away, could have sold it when we needed money, and God knows we needed money, but she did not. She kept it, and when she was dying, she gave it to me. What if that means something?" Elena reached across the table and took her daughter's hand. "Your grandmother was the strongest person I ever knew. She survived things that would have broken most people, but she was also kind. She believed in second chances. She used to tell me that holding on to anger was like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. So you think I should forgive him?" Natalia said. "I think you should do whatever brings you peace." Elena said, "But I also think maybe your grandmother kept that compass all these years because part of her never stopped hoping. Maybe she wanted you to find him. Maybe this is not an accident." That night, Natalia lay in her bed unable to sleep. She kept replaying Marcus's face when he realized Isabella was dead, the way he had crumbled like a building whose foundation had finally given out. She thought about her grandmother's last words to her. "Take care of this. It will help you find your way." At the time, she had thought Isabella meant the compass would help her find her way through life, through grief. But what if she had meant something more literal? The next morning, Natalia called the office. She told Vincent she needed to speak with Marcus Hawthorne, not at the office, somewhere private. Vincent gave her Marcus's personal cell phone number without asking questions. When she called, Marcus answered on the first ring like he had been waiting. "Meet me at Rosie's Cafe on East Boulevard." Natalia said, "Tomorrow at 10. I will be there." Marcus said, "And Natalia, thank you." She hung up before he could say anything else. Rosie's Cafe was the place where her grandmother had worked when she first came to Atlanta. It was still there somehow, a relic in a neighborhood that had been gentrified beyond recognition. Natalia chose it deliberately. If they were going to talk about the past, they should do it in a place that remembered. Marcus was already there when she arrived. He sat at a corner table looking older than he had in his office. Like the revelation had aged him a decade overnight. There were 2 cups of coffee on the table. He stood when she approached. "Thank you for coming," he said. His voice was rough, like he had not slept. Natalia sat without responding. She wrapped her hands around the coffee cup and tried to organize the 1,000 questions fighting for space in her mind. "I need to know if you really loved her," Natalia said, "or if she was just some girl you had fun with before you moved on to your real life." Marcus looked her straight in the eye. "I loved Isabella Rivera more than I have loved anything before or since. She was the reason I got up in the morning, the reason I worked so hard to build something. I wanted to be worthy of her. And then I threw it all away because I was a coward who cared more about my family's approval than about the woman I loved." The raw honesty in his voice was hard to hear. "Did you ever love the woman you were supposed to marry?" Natalia asked. "No." Marcus said, "I did not marry her. I called off the engagement 2 weeks after I left Isabella. By then she was gone, and I realized I had destroyed everything for nothing. My family cut me off anyway, said I was ungrateful and stupid. I built this company from absolute zero with money I borrowed and credit cards I maxed out. I did it all hoping that maybe if I became successful enough, powerful enough, I could find Isabella and prove to her I had changed. He reached into his jacket and pulled out a small leather-bound journal. He placed it on the table between them. I have kept this since the day she left. Every entry is about her. Things I remembered, things I wished I had said, places I looked. It has been 30 years, and there has not been a single day when I did not think about her. Natalia stared at the journal. She did not want to touch it, did not want to see inside this man's private grief. But her hand reached out anyway. She opened it to a random page. The handwriting was messy, desperate. Today I thought I saw her at the farmer's market. Same walk, same way of tilting her head when she was thinking. I followed her for 6 blocks before I realized it was not Isabella, just someone who moved like her. I sat in my car and cried like I was 25 again and had just realized what I had lost. Natalia turned to another page. This one was dated 15 years ago. I funded another scholarship today. A young woman from Colombia, studying engineering. She has Isabella's determination. I wonder if somewhere Isabella knows I am trying to make up for being the man who failed her. I wonder if she ever thinks about me, or if she found someone who deserved her love. There were hundreds of pages, thousands of words, all of them about a woman who had vanished, and a man who could not stop searching. She kept your compass, Natalia said quietly. Even when we were so poor we were selling everything else. Even when keeping it meant keeping the pain alive. She kept it. Marcus's eyes filled with tears. Why? I do not know, Natalia admitted. Maybe for the same reason you kept this journal. Maybe because some loves do not die, even when they should. This story gets even more intense. Drop a comment telling me if you think Natalia should give Marcus a chance. And make sure you are subscribed, because what I'm about to tell you next changes everything you think you know about this story. They sat in that cafe for 3 hours. Marcus told Natalia about meeting Isabella, how she had walked into his English class wearing a dress she had sewn herself, and shoes that were 2 sizes too big because they were the only ones she could afford. How she had mispronounced his name and then laughed at herself with such unself-conscious joy that everyone in the room fell a little bit in love with her. He told her about their first date at a food truck that sold tamales because it was all they could afford, about teaching her to read English using comic books because they made her laugh, about the night he gave her the compass and promised that no matter what happened, she would always be able to find her way back to him. Natalia told him about her grandmother's life after she left, about the man she eventually married, a kind man who knew she did not love him the way she had loved someone else but married her anyway because he wanted to take care of her, about Natalia's mother Elena, being born and growing up never quite understanding why her mother seemed sad even when she was smiling. She told him about Isabella's work as a seamstress, how she could take any piece of fabric and turn it into something beautiful, how she had sewn Natalia's prom dress by hand and cried when Natalia put it on because she said Natalia looked like a dream come true. And then Natalia told him about the end, about the cancer that came sudden and vicious, about sitting in a hospital room that smelled like antiseptic and death watching the strongest woman she knew get smaller and smaller until she was barely there, about holding Isabella's hand in those final hours and listening to her whisper instructions. Take care of your mother, take care of Gabriel, do not be afraid to love even when it hurts, and take this compass, it will help you find your way. Marcus cried openly as she spoke. He did not try to hide it or wipe the tears away. He just let them fall. When Natalia finished, they sat in silence. Outside the cafe, the city moved on. People walked by with coffee cups and grocery bags and problems that probably felt enormous to them, but were nothing compared to this, to 3 decades of lost love and second chances that came too late. I need to tell you something, Natalia said. Her heart was pounding so hard, she could hear it in her ears. Marcus looked at her, waiting. My mother, Elena, Natalia said slowly. She was born 7 months after my grandmother got married. Marcus stared at her, not understanding. I did the math. Natalia continued. I looked at the marriage certificate and the birth certificate, and I asked my mother directly if my grandmother was pregnant when she got married. Understanding began to dawn on Marcus's face. His expression shifted from confusion to disbelief to something like hope mixed with terror. My grandmother tried to tell you, Natalia said. My mother said Isabella went to your office 4 times in 2 weeks. She left messages with your secretary. She called your apartment, but you were already gone. Your family had sent you away on some business trip. By the time you got back, Isabella had left Atlanta. No, Marcus whispered. The word came out broken. No, that is not possible. Natalia pulled out the photograph her mother had given her. It showed a very young and very pregnant Isabella standing next to a man who was not Marcus Hawthorne. The man had his arm around her waist, and she was smiling, but her eyes were empty. This was taken at her wedding. Natalia said, she was already 4 months pregnant with your daughter. Marcus took the photograph with shaking hands. He stared at it like he was trying to decode a message written in a language he did not speak. His breathing became shallow and rapid. His face went white. I have a daughter, he said. The words sounded like a question and a statement and a prayer all at once. You had a daughter, Natalia corrected. Her name is Elena. She is 52 years old. She is my mother, which makes me your granddaughter. The photograph slipped from Marcus's fingers. It drifted to the floor and landed face up. Marcus stared at Natalia, seeing her with new eyes, looking for traces of himself in her face, in the shape of her eyes, the set of her jaw, the way she held herself when she was trying to be strong. I have been sitting across from my granddaughter. He breathed. Oh God. Oh my God. People in the cafe were starting to look over. Natalia could feel their curiosity like heat on her skin. She lowered her voice. Your family made sure you never got Isabella's messages. They intercepted everything. By the time you came back from wherever they sent you, she was gone. She was pregnant and alone and terrified, and the man she loved had vanished. I would have come back, Marcus said desperately. If I had known, if I had any idea, I would have left everything. I would have chosen her. I would have chosen you both. But you did not know, Natalia said, and she spent the rest of her life thinking you just did not care. Marcus put his head in his hands. His shoulders shook. For a long moment, the only sound was his ragged breathing. I missed everything, he said finally. I missed my daughter's childhood, her first steps, her first words. I missed helping her with homework and teaching her to drive and walking her down the aisle if she got married. I missed being a grandfather to you. I missed 30 years of loving the family I should have had. Yes, Natalia said, you did. The bluntness of it seemed to break something in him. He looked up at her with eyes full of more pain than she thought a person could hold and still keep breathing. Can I meet her? He asked. Your mother. Can I meet my daughter? Natalia had known this question was coming. She had thought about it constantly since she had realized the truth. Elena had a right to know who her biological father was, but she also had a right to refuse that knowledge, to say that the man who raised her was her real father and this other person was just biology. I will ask her, Natalia said, but I cannot promise she will say yes. This is a lot to process. For all of us. I understand. Marcus said, whatever she decides, I will respect it. But Natalia, he looked at her with desperate hope. Can I be part of your life? Even if your mother wants nothing to do with me, can I know my granddaughter? Natalia thought about her grandmother, about the compass that had finally led her here, about the journal full of 30 years of grief and searching, about the fact that holding on to anger was like drinking poison. I think, she said slowly, we can try, but this is not going to be easy. You do not get to just step into our lives and pretend the last 30 years did not happen. You do not get to throw money at us and call it love. If you want to be family, you have to earn it. I will, Marcus said. I will do whatever it takes. I promise. Natalia looked at him, at this powerful man brought to his knees by the past. And she made a decision her grandmother would probably approve of, a decision that chose healing over anger. Okay, she said. Let's see what happens. 2 weeks later, Natalia sat in her small apartment with her mother on one side and Marcus Hawthorne on the other. The space felt too small for the weight of what was happening. Marcus looked out of place in his expensive suit, sitting on her second-hand couch. Elena looked terrified. So, Elena said, you are the man who broke my mother's heart. Yes, Marcus said. He did not make excuses or try to explain. Just, yes. And you are my biological father. Yes. Elena stared at him for a long time. Natalia could see her mother's hands shaking in her lap. Finally, Elena spoke. The man who raised me was named Carlos Rivera. He was a good man. He knew I was not his biological child, and he loved me anyway. He worked construction for 40 years and never complained. He taught me how to ride a bike, and how to stand up for myself, and how to be kind even when the world was not kind to you. He died when I was 28, and I still miss him every single day. I am glad you had someone like that, Marcus said quietly. But, Elena continued, I also grew up watching my mother cry when she thought I was not looking. I grew up knowing there was a piece of her that was always somewhere else with someone else. I used to wonder who he was, the man who had her heart. And now, you are sitting in my daughter's apartment telling me it was you. Marcus nodded. I know I have no right to ask for anything from you. I was not there. I did not raise you. I did not earn the title of father. But I would like the chance to know you, if you will let me. Elena looked at Natalia. What do you think, baby? Should I give him a chance? Natalia touched the compass around her neck. I think Grandma kept this for 30 years for a reason. I think she wanted us to find him. I do not know why. Maybe she wanted us to have what she could not, or maybe she just believed in forgiveness. Elena turned back to Marcus. I will give you a chance, but you need to understand something. You do not get to buy your way into our lives. We are not a charity case. We are your family, and if you want to be part of that, it means showing up. It means being there when things are hard, not just when it is convenient. I understand, Marcus said, and I will be there. I promise. The three of them sat together in that small apartment and began the long, slow work of building something from ruins. It was awkward at first, full of silences and false starts, and moments when the weight of the past threatened to crush the fragile present. But slowly, over weeks and then months, they found a rhythm. Marcus came to dinner every Sunday, not at a fancy restaurant, but at Elena's house where they ate food she cooked and talked about normal things like work and weather and Gabriel's latest doctor's appointment. He learned that Elena loved to bake, but never had money to open the bakery she dreamed about. He learned that Natalia was brilliant with social media strategy, but had been overlooked for promotions because she did not have connections. And he learned that his family was struggling in ways he had never imagined, that Gabriel's medications cost more per month than Elena made, that Natalia was drowning in student loans, that both women worked themselves to exhaustion and still barely got by. He wanted to fix everything immediately, to write checks and solve problems and erase decades of struggle with money. But Natalia stopped him. This is not about money, she said. This is about showing up. If you want to help us, then be our family. The rest we will figure out. So Marcus learned to show up. He went to Gabriel's doctor's appointments and sat in waiting rooms that smelled like industrial cleaner. He helped Elena fix her car when it broke down instead of just buying her a new one. He spent Saturday afternoons with Natalia going over her student loan statements and helping her make a plan to pay them off. He did the small, unglamorous work of being family, and slowly the walls began to come down. One evening, about 6 months after that first meeting, Marcus asked if he could visit Isabella's grave. Elena and Natalia took him to the small cemetery where she was buried. It was not fancy, just a simple stone with her name and dates, and a line in Spanish that meant she was loved. Marcus stood in front of that grave for a long time, not speaking. Finally, he knelt down and placed a bouquet of white lilies on the grass, Isabella's favorite flower. The fact that he remembered after 30 years made Natalia's throat tight. I am sorry, Marcus said. His voice broke. I am so sorry, Isabella. I should have fought for you. I should have chosen you over everything else. I should have been there when you needed me. I cannot change that now. But I promise I will spend whatever time I have left loving the family you built. I will be the man you believed I could be, even if it is 30 years too late. Elena stepped forward and placed her own flowers on the grave. I wish I could have known you together, she said. I wish I could have seen what you were like when you were happy with each other. But thank you for giving me life. And thank you for being strong enough to raise me alone. Natalia was the last to speak. She touched the compass around her neck. You brought us home, Grandma. I do not know how, but this compass finally led us where we needed to be. I hope wherever you are, you can see that we are going to be okay. We are going to be a family. As they stood together in that quiet place, Natalia felt something shift, like a weight she had been carrying without knowing it had finally been lifted. The anger was still there. The grief was still there. But alongside them was something new, something that felt like hope. If this story is touching your heart, please share it with someone who needs to hear it. Hit that like button and drop a comment telling me your biggest takeaway so far. And make sure you are subscribed, because we're about to jump ahead and show you what happens when these three people decide to build something beautiful from the ashes. 5 years passed. 5 years of Sunday dinners and birthday celebrations and slow, careful trust building. 5 years of Marcus learning how to be a father and grandfather. 5 years of Elena and Natalia learning how to let someone in after spending so long being self-sufficient. Marcus kept his promise. He showed up. When Gabriel had a health scare that put him in the hospital for 2 weeks, Marcus was there every day. When Elena finally worked up the courage to apply for a small business loan to start her bakery, Marcus signed without being asked. When Natalia was passed over for a promotion she deserved, Marcus did not use his influence to fix it. Instead, he helped her practice her interview skills and encouraged her to keep trying. And slowly, the family that should have existed 30 years ago began to take shape. Marcus also did something else. He started a foundation in Isabella's name. The Isabella Rivera Foundation focused on helping immigrant women build new lives in America. They provided grants for education, helped with housing, offered legal assistance, connected women with job training programs. In 5 years, they helped over 3,000 women. Natalia ran the foundation. It turned out that her degree in communications and her instinct for connecting with people made her perfect for the work. She loved it in a way she had never loved anything else. Every woman she helped felt like honoring her grandmother's memory. Elena opened her bakery, a small place in the neighborhood where she grew up. She called it Isabella's Kitchen and filled it with recipes her mother had taught her. It became the kind of place where people gathered not just for bread, but for community. Within 2 years, she had expanded twice. Marcus stepped back from the day-to-day operations of Hawthorne Industries. He had built an empire and discovered it meant nothing without people to share it with. He spent his time now working with the foundation and showing up for his family. He taught Gabriel to play chess. He walked Elena down the aisle when she remarried a kind man who loved her and her children. He sat in the audience at Natalia's graduate school ceremony when she got her master's degree in nonprofit management. He was not trying to make up for lost time anymore. He was just living in the time he had. On the 5th anniversary of their reunion, the foundation held its annual gala. It was a huge event held at a hotel in downtown Atlanta with donors and board members and local politicians. Natalia was scheduled to give the keynote speech. She stood backstage wearing a dress her grandmother had made by hand 40 years ago. Elena had found it in a trunk in the attic and had it carefully restored. It was simple, a tea-length dress in deep blue with hand-embroidered flowers along the hem. Isabella had sewn it when she first came to America, before she met Marcus, before her heart got broken, when she was still full of hope about what this country might offer her. Natalia touched the compass around her neck. She still wore it every day. The needle still did not point true north, but that was okay. It had done its job. It had brought her family home. Marcus appeared beside her. "You look beautiful," he said, just like she did. Natalia smiled at him, at this man who was her grandfather, who had spent 30 years searching and 5 years learning how to be family. Nervous, she admitted, "You will be great." Marcus said, "You always are." Elena joined them, wearing a dress from her own boutique line. She had started designing clothes a year ago, simple, elegant pieces for working women. They sold faster than she could make them. "You ready, baby?" she asked Natalia. "As ready as I will ever be," Natalia said. The three of them stood together in the wings, watching the ballroom fill with people. 5 years ago, they had been strangers connected only by DNA and a broken compass. Now they were family, messy and complicated and real. Natalia stepped onto the stage to thunderous applause. The lights were bright and hot. She could barely see the audience beyond the first few rows, but she did not need to see them. She just needed to tell them the truth. "Good evening," she began. "My name is Natalia Rivers, and I am the executive director of the Isabella Rivera Foundation. I want to tell you about the woman we named this foundation after. My grandmother Isabella came to this country 33 years ago with one suitcase and a heart full of hope. She spoke almost no English, She had no family here. She had nothing but her own determination and the belief that if she worked hard enough, she could build a better life. The audience was quiet, listening. She did build that life. Natalia continued. She learned English. She found work. She got married and had a daughter. She became a seamstress and put food on the table and made sure her family had what they needed. But it was not easy. She worked 2 jobs for most of her life. She went without so her daughter could have more. She faced discrimination and hardship and a million small cruelties that come with being an immigrant in a country that does not always welcome you. Natalia paused, let her words settle. And she did all of that while carrying a broken heart. My grandmother loved someone once, loved him with everything she had, and he chose something else over her. He walked away, and she was left to build a life alone while pregnant and terrified. She could have become bitter. She could have let that pain poison everything else, but she did not. She kept going. She raised her daughter with love. She taught my mother and me that strength is not about never falling down. It is about getting back up. She saw Marcus in the front row, saw tears streaming down his face. This foundation exists because my grandmother believed everyone deserves a second chance. She believed that no one should have to face the challenges she faced alone. And she believed in forgiveness, even when it was hard, even when the person who hurt her did not deserve it. She chose to forgive because holding on to anger only hurt her. Natalia looked out at the audience. 5 years ago, I discovered a secret that changed my life. I learned that my grandmother had kept a piece of jewelry for 30 years, a broken compass that did not work. She kept it because it had been given to her by the man she loved, the man who left her, and when she died, she gave it to me. She held up the compass so the light caught it. For a long time I did not understand why she kept it. It seemed like holding on to pain, but now I understand. She kept it because she believed that someday it would lead someone home, and it did. It led me to my grandfather, the man who spent 30 years searching for her, the man who has spent the last 5 years trying to make up for the biggest mistake of his life. Marcus stood up. He was crying openly now, and he did not care who saw. My grandfather cannot change the past. Natalia said, he cannot give my grandmother back the years she spent struggling. He cannot undo the pain he caused, but he can be here now. He can show up for his family. He can build something good from the wreckage of what was lost. And that is what this foundation is. It is proof that it is never too late to make things right. It is never too late to choose love. The audience erupted in applause. People were standing. Some were crying. Natalia saw Elena wiping her eyes. She saw Gabriel in his wheelchair grinning at her. She saw board members and donors and the women they had helped all clapping and cheering. But mostly she saw Marcus, her grandfather, walking toward the stage. She met him at the bottom of the steps, and he pulled her into a hug that felt like coming home. Thank you, he whispered. Thank you for giving me a chance I did not deserve. Grandma would have wanted this, Natalia whispered back. She would have wanted us to find each other. They stood there together while the applause continued, and Natalia felt her grandmother's presence so strongly it was like she was standing right there with them, like she had been guiding them all along, like the compass had always been working just fine. It just had not been pointing north. It had been pointing toward this moment, toward forgiveness and family, and the kind of love that survives everything. Later that night after the gala ended, Natalia stood on the balcony of the hotel looking out at the city. Atlanta spread out below her like a blanket of lights. Somewhere out there was the neighborhood where her grandmother had first lived, the community center where she met Marcus, the apartment where she cried when he left, the hospital where she died. But also out there was Elena's bakery, and the foundation offices, and Marcus's house where they had Sunday dinners, and the cemetery where Isabella rested, knowing her family had finally found their way to each other. Marcus joined her on the balcony. Elena came too. The three of them stood together looking at the city that had been the setting for so much pain and so much healing. Do you think she knows? Elena asked. Do you think Mama can see what we have built? I think she knows. Marcus said, I think she has known all along. I think she has been watching over all of us, making sure we found our way. Natalia touched the compass one more time. It was warm against her skin. For just a moment, she could have sworn the needle moved, not toward north, just toward the two people standing beside her, toward family, toward home. The end of this story is really just the beginning of a family learning to love each other, the beginning of healing that will take generations, the beginning of understanding that some things are never truly lost. They are just waiting to be found. If this story moved you, I want you to do something for me. Share it with someone who needs to hear it, someone who is carrying anger or pain or grief, someone who thinks it is too late for second chances. Tell them about Isabella, who kept a broken compass for 30 years. Tell them about Marcus, who never stopped searching. Tell them about Natalia and Elena, who chose forgiveness over bitterness. And then, I want you to hit that like button. Leave a comment telling me what this story taught you. Tell me about your own family secrets, or the people you have forgiven, or the second chances you have given. Let's build a community of people who believe that love is stronger than pain, and that it is never too late to make things right. And please subscribe to Mr. Andy Love Stories, because this is what we do here. We tell stories about real human emotion, about the choices we make and the consequences we live with, about the ways love survives even when everything else falls apart. This is not just entertainment. This is life. This is the truth, that we are all connected by the mistakes we make and the grace we offer each other. This is the reminder that every single person you meet is carrying a story you know nothing about. And sometimes the smallest act of forgiveness can change everything. Natalia still works at the foundation. Elena's bakery just opened its 5th location. Gabriel is 24 now and studying to be a counselor so he can help other kids dealing with chronic illness. Marcus is 71 and shows up for every birthday and holiday and random Tuesday when someone needs him. They are not perfect. They still fight sometimes, still have hard conversations about the past and what it cost them, but they are family. Real family built not on obligation, but on choice, on the decision to love even when it is hard, especially when it is hard. And somewhere in a cemetery in Atlanta, there is a simple grave with fresh flowers that get replaced every week, white lilies, because Marcus remembers, because Elena wants her mother to know she is loved, because Natalia understands now why her grandmother kept that compass. It was never about the compass working. It was about keeping the faith that somehow, some way, the people who are meant to find each other will, even if it takes 30 years, even if it happens through a granddaughter who walks into an office wearing a piece of the past around her neck, even if the journey is painful and complicated and nothing like anyone imagined, love finds a way. That is what Isabella believed. That is what she taught her daughter and granddaughter. That is what the compass represented. Not a tool for navigation, but a symbol of faith. The belief that no matter how lost you are, no matter how broken the world seems, there is always a way home. And home is not a place. It is the people who see you at your worst and choose to stay anyway. It is the family you build from the ruins of what was lost. It is the love that survives everything, including death and time and 30 years of searching. This is the story of a compass that did not point north, but it pointed true. It pointed toward exactly where everyone needed to be. Thank you for watching. Thank you for being part of this community. Thank you for believing that stories like this matter. Now go tell someone you love them. Go forgive someone who hurt you. Go make the choice that your future self will thank you for. And remember, it is never too late. Love never dies. And sometimes the things we think are broken are exactly what we need to find our way home.